Hello everybody, thank you for watching our videos. Our journey continues. We are on Holland America cruise ship for 31 days and we left Montevideo, Uruguay, and we are on our way to Falkland Islands. 2 days journey from Montevideo to Falkland Islands.
Since bad weather is such an important part of the experience at the southern tip of South America at Cape Horn, the captain did a presentation on weather. It was interesting to see that he used the same tools that sailors in yachts use, windy and predict wind, to show the weather patterns and the drama that comes with being at Cape Horn.
Almost all the time the weather was not really great, foggy. And of course we are going to the south. It started getting colder and colder. Maybe somebody will say, you are going to the south, why it is colder? Okay, think about this. But anyway, it was interesting. We were very excited to go to Falkland Islands. We couldn't, by the way, we were supposed to anchor near Port Stanley. Falkland Islands has two parts, the east and the west. We anchored near the east part of islands. So if we anchored, this means we have to take a boat. We took the safety boat. Very often ships use their own safety boats, so they can check if everything is working in case an emergency. And it is very convenient just to take these boats down and put passengers on the boat. Hey, how are you?
Good today. Welcome to Falkland Islands.
Thank you.
The flag?
British flag?
No, not exactly. It's green.
Where is green?
Looks green to me.
No, it is blue.
Is it?
Yes. Okay, we are here on Falkland Islands.
Good morning. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Welcome to Falkland Islands. Okay, let's make a picture. Of course, very first thing that you do when you get from the ship, you take a picture. People who works at the photo gallery on our ship are there already, and they take your picture so they can sell you later. Some pictures are good, some are not really, but you don't have to take it. You don't have to buy it. And we took a picture. They took our picture in the front of the first house that was built here in Port Stanley. Hubby. If you did not have a chance to buy a shore excursion on the ship, you can buy it here. Local people want to make some money as well, and so they offer you tours. Usually tours are a little bit cheaper than on the ship. Okay, it's your choice. You can take it or you just can walk here in the town. It is what we decided to do at first, just to walk in the town. 1 second. Everything is very convenient for tourists here, like everywhere. near the dock, you can get some information about the town, about walking tours, about maybe hiking trails, and of course you can buy some souvenirs here, t-shirts, as usual, coffee cups. And we decided just to walk in the town. By the way, it is the first house, like I mentioned, that was built here in Port Stanley. Parish of the Falkland Islands. Welcome to Christchurch Cathedral. It is a beautiful church. Let's see inside.
This is a monument to the whaling industry and its importance to the Falklands. This is made from the jawbone of two whales, jawbones of two whales.
Our tour guide said that she grew up in this house with the red roof that you see there. She said that when she was a little girl, she remembered that a British newspaper, I think she said it was a Telegraph, decided to bring attention to the fact that the people of the Falklands felt like they were being ignored by Great Britain. And so the newspaper started doing a series of stories about the Falklands Islands. And she said she remembered when a reporter came to town and everyone in Port Stanley, all the people of Port Stanley were asked by the newspaper to gather here for a photograph showing their support for Britain. They were all to bring their British flags and so forth. And she showed me a photograph that the newspaper man made from her bedroom window, which is the right-hand window at the top that you see there. It was published in the British newspaper that showed all the people of Port Stanley gathered in this grass here waving British flags. And she showed us a copy of the photograph. It's very interesting.
If you ever have a chance to visit the Falkland Islands, Zena and I heartily recommend that you do so. It's quite an interesting place. It's the end of the world. It's very isolated. It's very poorly populated. The islands are very sparsely populated with just village here and there and many more sheep than there are people. In the main town, the only sizable town, which is Port Stanley, there are about 3,500 residents, supplemented by a military base on the outside of town with British soldiers. More about that in a moment. 1,500 British soldiers, so a total of about 5,000 people, including the 1,500 temporary residents who are British soldiers. The Falklands are important in our modern history, I guess, since about 1800, as a stop for whalers and as a place to repair ships as they came to and fro around Cape Horn. Historically, they were discovered, I think, in the early 1500s. They were variously occupied in part or in whole by Spain and by Britain at various times, and both countries gave up their possession of the islands at various times as well. So who actually owns them, quote unquote, historically, is a very confused matter and very difficult to sort out. To me, at least, the more important point about the ownership of the islands is that the population in modern times is almost 100%, with less than 1% anything else. It's almost 100% of British descent, and that in a referendum which was held, I think, in the late 1980s or 1990s after the war was over, when the residents of the Falklands were asked if they wanted to remain a part of Britain, over 99%, 99.8% I think, said yes. So to me, the ownership of the islands is really settled more by the desires of the people and the ethnicity of the people than it is the back and forth historical claims that involved abandonment by both parties over time. The islands are stark. There's not a lot of trees, except trees that have been deliberately planted and cultivated. It was a whaling community for a couple of hundred years, but now it makes its living, number one, industry from fishing, number two, believe it or not, from tourism, and number three, from wool and assorted meat products, I guess, of all the hundreds of thousands of sheep that there are on the island. It's a really interesting place to walk around and hear the history of the war from a guided tour, as we had the chance to do. The war occurred in 1982 when Argentina, which calls the islands the Malvinas, suddenly invaded the islands and took control of them. That was at the end of a period of diplomatic disputing back and forth with England about who was going to control the islands, and Argentina, with its military leadership, finally just decided that they would take the islands, and they invaded and conquered them. England went to a great deal of trouble to put together an armada, come back, invade the islands, and reconquer them. so that the Argentinian occupation only wound up lasting, I think, 72 days. But the English reconquered them with some subtle behind-the-scenes American help, and the story of the fighting over the Falkland Islands and through the populated areas, which was witnessed by the population, is a very interesting story for sure, and one you get to hear if you spend any time there. This is now a gift shop, but during the war, this was the telephone building. And our guide told us that during the invasion, the telephones were important in communicating to people what was going on, and that the women who worked in here at these switchboards laid in the floor to avoid the bullets and the shells and so forth that were flying around everywhere. And when a call came through, they would raise up high enough to plug the plugs that they needed to do in order to connect the call, and then they would get back down on the floor again. And that lasted until the Argentinians reached this building and captured it, and then they shut it down.
And now tourists come to this building to buy something for the house, for the memory about Falkland Islands, and probably many of them don't know this story and don't think what the scary memory keeps this building inside. It is just incredible. Do you see anything interesting?
Earworms. The top of those black steps through the green door is where the Argentinians surrendered. That's where the surrender was signed, up there on that, through that green door.
Oh, okay.
Our guide told us that during the Argentinian War, the Argentinians ran a lot of people out of their homes for various reasons. They wanted places to put their troops and so forth. And they moved the ones that they ran out of their homes into this building here. This became a refugee center. And this is where people stayed who were homeless during the war.
By the way, in Argentina you can see in many places the picture of Falkland Islands with the Argentinian flag. They still call Falkland Islands Malvinas Islands. So they want them back, I think. By the way, the Argentinians left between 20 and 30,000 landmines on Falkland Islands. The special team from Zimbabwe deactivated them. Now everything is safe on the island. And here you can see the memorial in honor of the military and civilians who were killed from the British side, of course. And the sign says, "In memory of those who liberated us." And all names you can read here on the wall. And on the scroll you can see two symbols, sheep and ship. I think you can understand why, because you could get on those islands only by ship, and islands have more sheep than people are on the island. So what else can we see? You see the prison and the police station, another church, and on the right the bank and the courthouse. It's a strange combination, right? So if you rob a bank, they take you to the police station, they take you to the court across the street, and then to the prison. Everything is logical, I think. It is the police car. Royal Falkland Islands Police. And by the way, it is a prison vehicle for prisoners. A minivan for prisoners. Fort. And like I mentioned, there is another church, St. Mary's Catholic Church. Everything is connected to penguins. Penguin travel bus. There is approximately 1 million penguins on Falkland Islands. 5,000 people and 1 million penguins and many ships. Your guess is right. It is the newspaper of Port Stanley, Penguin News. Of course, there are many penguins on Falkland Islands, so it is a logical name for the newspaper.
This is like the Capitol building. This is the office of the Legislative Assembly, where the members of the legislature meet, where they make the laws that govern the Falklands. Here you see what is the only hotel on the island, and we were told that it's a pretty expensive hotel, and that the name, which sounds like the Malvinas Islands, which is what Argentina calls the Falklands, the name is not liked. It's the Malvina House. The name is not liked by the locals. But the owner did not choose that name because of the Argentinians staying for the Falklands. He chose it because his daughter's name is Malvina. So that's why it's named that, and not because the Argentines call the Falklands the Malvinas Islands.
It is the post office, and you can see phone booth like in England. Stanley Falkland Islands post office. And the phone booths. I don't know if you can call. No signal. It is just for tourists and for reminding that it is a British place. The West store, supermarket, clothing store, cafe, and tax-free electrical store.
Here you see the West Market, which is on the main street. It is the largest and the most predominant grocery store, supermarket on the islands. They say it is by far the biggest, and it's the one that people go to. It's actually quite a large store with many parts to it, and it sells many different kinds of things. It appeared to be very well stocked with many sorts of food, although we didn't look that closely at the fresh vegetables and meats, and perhaps we should have, because our guide told us that the main supply ship only comes once per month, and that it was due in a few days, and right before it comes, the market is out of many things. So even though it appeared to be well stocked, it may not have a lot of fresh goods. We didn't really notice. This is the hospital and the college. We think that the red building on the left, red roof building, is the hospital, which is a small hospital. There's only 14 beds, we understand. And if you have anything serious wrong with you, or you need any kind of significant surgery at all, you have to be flown to Uruguay or to Chile for treatment. We think that the brown building to the right is the college. We were told that the college and hospital were here, and we think that that's what that one is. College is free. It's not a university. It's only a college on the British style. And if you make really good grades, the government will pay for you to go to England to university for further training. All education is free here, except that in order to get advanced education, you have to have really good grades. The big white building with the green roof over to the right is the government house where the governor, the British royal governor, lives and has lived for about 150 years in that building. It was attacked by the Argentinians in the war. They tried to capture the governor. They were unsuccessful. The Royal Marines defended him, and when the British surrendered, the governor and the Royal Marines were evacuated, as I understand it, as part of the deal, the surrender deal. So he was not, in fact, captured. But that is where the governor lives even to this day, and if members of the British royalty visit the islands, which they occasionally do, that's where they stay.
And of course there is supposed to be the museum. And yes, there is a National Museum of the Falkland Islands dedicated to the history of Falklands, including the war.
We were told that this was the ruins of the old dock that was used during the 1800s and even before as a stop for whaling vessels who would take shelter here to do repairs and to try to resupply themselves and so forth. This port, Port Stanley, was a major stop for the whaling industry coming from both the Pacific around Cape Horn and whaling in the South Atlantic, and going from the Atlantic around Cape Horn into the Pacific.
I went on the edge of Port Stanley. Up on the top there's a road, and the town, the Port Stanley, just stops. There are no houses anymore, just bare land. And I walked in the residential area, just looked at houses, look how people live, and you know, I like it. I saw prosperities, and you know what I thought? I thought, you don't know how these people's life could be if they had a different government from a different country, from Argentina, let's say. Better, worse, who knows? Nobody knows. But right now I think they live great. And while I was walking, the young man, I heard that somebody said hello, and it was a young man who lives apparently in this house, and he said, it is a dead end, you can't go farther. And we started talking, You remember we told you that our tour guide lived here during the war. She was 19 years old, and apparently this young man lived here that time too, and he told me his story, his interesting story, his point of view of that war, what he remembers.
My 5th birthday
Can I?
in this house down here.
It was your 5th birthday?
This house, the house in front, with the pinkish roof just in front of the fence. That's where I used to live.
Really?
My mum and dad lived there, and I had my 5th birthday in the war in there.
What do you remember about the war?
Not much.
Not
'Cause I was
much?
only 4 and 5 years old. But I remember Argentine soldiers walking along the road. I remember we had at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was dark, so we had curfew. We had to put blackout on the windows, and I remember we peeped out through there, and you could see guns going over, tracer fire, bullets, bombs, yeah, all that sort of stuff. Planes flying over during the day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But at 4, it's not. You don't know what it is, so you don't know it's scary or not.
You don't
really.
know what is going
But
on
my
actually.
parents were definitely scared, yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. It is a very, very interesting and great place, Falkland Islands. Of course, we saw just little part of it, and actually I want to come back maybe for a month and explore more. I hope you liked our video, and next time we will visit the most southerly point of land in the world, except for Antarctica. See you next time!